Are you fine? You're working fine. So another check. So we're just doing a final check. Check, please. And again. And last but not least.
Live stream audio check. Feedback.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee. Apologies for the slight delay in starting. The first item of business on the agenda is the appointment of a chair for the municipal year. So, committee, can I please have a nomination?
I nominate Councillor Corey.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Young. Committee, are you happy to vote in Councillor Corey as your chair for the forthcoming municipal year? Yes, thank you. Unanimous.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you to all of you around the table for that. Therefore, the next item on the agenda is appointment of a deputy chair, and I ask for nominations and seconders, and I will nominate for deputy chair Councillor Sarah Naylor. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you. Any others? No. Can I ask then that Councillor Sarah Naylor be appointed as deputy chair? All those in favour? Thank you. Excellent. Then that is done. Thank you. Deputy Chair, Councillor Naylor. So, good evening to those listening online. Good evening to those here this evening. This is the meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee on Wednesday, the 24th of June 2026. I'm Councillor Mark Corey. I represent Wivenhoe Ward and chair this committee as of this evening. Just to go through the health and safety notices, action in event of an emergency. There are no practice alarms planned for this evening, so if an alarm does sound, please evacuate the town hall by going down the main staircase or the back staircase to the High Street and then to the car park behind the town hall in St Runwood Street. This meeting is being held in the Grand Jury Room in the town hall in Colchester and is also being broadcast live over the internet, where it can be watched via the Council's YouTube channel, where recording will be available to view afterwards. Please would speakers use the microphones at all times and then turn the microphone off afterwards and speak directly into the microphone. Members of the committee may use electronic devices to access their meeting papers, and visitors are welcome to use mobile phones and other devices, including cameras, but please use them discreetly, set them to silent, and do not use voice or camera flash functions. The Mayor will take any fines from any councillors' mobile phones going off. There are toilets on every floor in the building and an induction loop in this room. We will have a short break at 7:30, and also I'm aware of the heat and the need to hydrate, so if people need to do that and need to exit the room to dehydrate in a different way, then please do. So I will move to introductions to the rest of the committee, and I'll go to my left, including officers, and go round. Please introduce yourself by name and ward. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lindsay Barker. I'm Deputy Chief Executive of Colchester City Council.
Good evening. I'm Councillor Sarah Naylor, Lexton and Braithwaite Ward.
Councillor Martin Parsons, Mersey and Pyfleet Ward.
Councillor Kevin Bentley, Marks Tay and Lair Ward.
Chris Pearson, Councillor for Beerchurch.
Good evening, Esme Cole, Chair of Colchester Borough Homes.
Good evening, Jeff Bill, Strategic Housing and Assurance Manager for the Council.
Good evening, Chris Waite, Director of Assets for Colchester Borough Homes.
Good evening, Amy St Ledger, Director of Operations for Colchester Borough Homes.
Good evening, Councillor Natalie Summers, St Anne St John Ward.
Councillor Tim Young, proud to represent Greenstead Ward for the Labour Party, and I'm here substituting for Councillor Julie Young.
Matthew Evans, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you all. We have other officers around the room who will come forward during each item, and then we can introduce you at that point. Thank you. So substitutions, Councillor Young has just outlined he is substituting for Councillor Julie Young. Those are all the substitutes this evening. We do not have any urgent items. If they were, they would be published on the agenda or the supplementary agenda, but we are not aware of any. Declarations of interest. Can I ask at this point, please, that any councillors declare an interest? That means they can not participate in the meeting. So I have one myself, which is the disclosable interest in item 11.6 VI, by virtue of the fact that I am named specifically in the report and therefore will not be able to participate in this item, both on the public agenda and on the private agenda. So at that point, I'll hand over to Councillor Naylor as Deputy Chair, and I will exit the room. Thank you. Item 7, minutes of the previous meeting. The committee is asked to confirm that the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of March and the 23rd of March and the hearing subcommittees meeting on the 19th, including those minutes contained in Part B of the agenda, are a correct record. Now, not all of us were on the committee, but for those who were, it may just be you, Councillor Pearson. No, you weren't either. Okay. Councillor Summers, thank you. And Councillor Naylor as well. Okay, so if you are happy to suggest that those minutes are to be approved, and we'll take your confidence in those, thank you. We'll approve those, thank you. Moving forward to have your say, what I just want to do before we go there is just outline a number of changes to the running order of the agenda to make it a bit smoother for this evening. First of all, I have agreed to take item 11.4, 11 IV, about the appointment of Sir Bob Russell to become an honorary freeman of the City of Colchester. I will take that first before the landlord housing item. And then also I want to take item 10, which is to do with companies, company oversight and fora, and move that to ahead of item 11.5, so towards the back of the agenda, and also to then move the work programme ahead of the confidential item and the Turnstone report. Let's say it. I shouldn't say it that way, but so that I can then contribute into the work programme before I have to leave. That's not so much a personal thing, but allows us all to discuss that before we go into a more detailed session. Okay, are we happy to take the agenda in that way? If there's any dissent, please let me know. Okay, thank you. Therefore, I would like to, as we have your say registered, take item 11 IV, and with that we do have a speaker. We have Alderman Lynn Barton. So I'd like to bring Lynn forward, and then I've got Councillor Lilly, and then I'll ask if is Hayley, are you going to speak to the report? Okay, thank you. Lynn. Good evening, good to see you.
Good evening, Chair. Thank you very much for that. Red. Oh, forgotten the procedure already.
Yes, I wanted to come personally to support the proposal for Sir Bob to be appointed an honorary freeman of the City of Colchester. I did think that there might be some members that weren't aware of Bob's history, but looking around the room, I think people are pretty aware. But I thought there might be some new councillors here, so that was another reason. The committee papers do list his achievements, I know, so I won't restate them in any detail, but I did want to make the point that Bob has given 55 years of continuous public service, and that seriously is a record. I don't think anybody's equalled that at all. As we know, he started off as councillor, then leader of the council, then mayor, then MP, then he was knighted by the Queen in 2012 and became Colchester's High Steward in 2015. So there's his credentials, and they're the reasons that I think he certainly should be appointed in this role. But I also wanted to mention that Sir Bob has always supported the mayor, and regardless of political party, and you know, we're very proud of that actually. And Mike and I found his support invaluable during our mayoral year. Bob also works with lots of local groups, taking forward new initiatives. He never sits still and lends his knowledge and expertise, particularly to the civic society, so he can bring out the best in Colchester. And the final thing I wanted to mention was his fundraising, really, for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, which wasn't just an overnight thing, it took 5 years. And during that time, Bob gave numerous guided tours around Colchester to raise funds. Obviously, towards the end, other people chipped in so that it became possible. But you've got to commend the man for doing that to commemorate our history. So that was and a final point, I noticed on the agenda that it does say that we need a special council meeting in order to bestow this honour on him. And I would suggest, I know some of the members of the committee might not be happy with the costs that involved, but we always have the alderman's ceremony, so if this was done in time, I can't see why we can't combine the two, so that avoids having to have an extra meeting. And that was just my final point. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Barton. That's absolutely spot on. Thank you. We'll comment on that shortly, but I'll bring in Mike, please. Councillor Mike Lilly, you are on screen.
Good evening. Good evening.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to take this item first. I was so looking forward to sitting through the whole of the meeting to get there. Sir Bob Russell. He surprised me a lot during my year as the mayor. He turned up to an awful lot of events in support of us there. I had so much advice to do that. People like he's done for Colchester, and actually believe he is a freeman of the city because he does so much. And recently he's just donated a new Union flag. Flags are all the rage these days, aren't they? That was just great of him, but just summed him up. He was quite impressive in all the year, and for all his life in giving his career to Colchester, and a number of people who asked me about this freeman title. So I was asked to put it forward. And I'm very happy to do so. And I don't think there's anybody else at the moment that's going to really be worthy of this title. We do. And with the unrest of LGR coming up, and we could have the mayor disappear completely. We need somebody who will stand up for Colchester. As a title and a person. I can't think of anyone better than Sir Bob. I'll end there because I was boring you. And all the details are in the agenda. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you, Mike. And I think your evidence there, as the outgoing mayor, would be supported by many others before you. So it's really helpful you did come and speak, and it shows the cross-party belief in Sir Bob Russell as well. So thank you. Over to you, Hayley, to present the report. I think it's pretty clear. There is good support, so up to you to be concise and clear with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I got the message. So in terms of the report in front of you, as the Chair has said, it's quite comprehensive. The group leaders were consulted before the report was put together. There was unanimous agreement to recommend Sir Bob for this title. We have already looked at potential dates. So in terms of the meeting, the ceremony for Alderman is on the 16th of September, hence why the report has come to this committee meeting to enable the time frame for it to go to full council prior to that event on the 16th. And my understanding is that everybody is happy with that date, and if this is agreed, that's what we would be heading for, obviously with the Alderman at the same time. So I'm not going to add any more to it. I think Lynn and Mike have actually set out a very clear reason why Sir Bob should be awarded this title, and obviously I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayley. I do appreciate that. I think we could all wax lyrical about Sir Bob's contributions, his challenge, his political nous, his longevity. It has been amazing. I've learnt a lot from being in his shadow over the years, and I think you're right that Lynn and Mike have both really spoken to the attributes of Sir Bob and the commitments, and he probably does have the best attendance at civic events beyond the rest of us. So I hope he can make the date that we're putting in train to come to that one in particular and to speak. I don't know if he owns sheep, but usually you're allowed to now, if we go forward, sort of take your sheep across the borough, the district, the city. So can I ask members if anyone wants to add any more short comments, but are we all in favour? Councillor Parsons, you perhaps haven't been around as long to know of Bob's work, but over to you.
Yeah, this is a general comment on the report. I felt it would have been helpful, Chair, if we'd had a few examples of other people who'd been given that honour in the past and why they'd been given that honour, because governance and audit should be an evidence-based committee, and obviously we've had lots of evidence about Sir Bob, but without having those other examples, what we're effectively being asked to do is to kind of almost go on gut feeling instead of a criteria. So just a comment that in future these things, it would be helpful to have some past examples. Thank you.
Thank you, that's a fair comment. Hayley, is that something we could add for the report that goes to full council if this was agreed?
Absolutely, I can make sure that we've got some examples in there. What I would say is we don't give this title very often, so you are not going to have many recent examples. I think the last one was Ivor Crew. We have given it to Air Assault Brigade in terms of the freedom of the city, but actually people, it's very few and far between. There is no criteria for that because it is on merit, so it has to be exceptional circumstances. But I will definitely give a bit more detail for the report going forward.
Thank you, and I assume it would be free woman if we put forward an honorary female for the role as well, but I'll go to Councillor Tim Young, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sir Bob and I have had a few run-ins over the years, but to echo what Lynn and Councillor Lilly said, when you become mayor, Bob came into his own and was tremendously helpful. I mean, a lot went on during my mayoral year, you might remember. But Bob was always there for advice and information and knowledge. I mean, he did only do 31 years as a councillor, which is a paltry amount compared to some of us. But I think if anyone is deserving of this title, then Sir Bob, despite our run-ins over the year. Certainly in recent times, Bob and I have got on much better, and I think he's fully deserving of this title, and I will support it, as did our group leader.
Thank you. I'm sure Councillor Bentley can say similar about run-ins, but Sir Bob is now apolitical, but I can say, coming from the party that he did, you can have run-ins very much within parties as much as across. I'll take it that therefore we're confident to go to the vote and to to recommend or to go for this decision to determine whether to recommend to full council that it should admit Sir Bob Russell to be an honorary freeman of the City of Colchester in recognition of his eminent service to Colchester. All those in favour, please. Thank you. Those abstaining or voting against? Sorry, against, abstaining. Okay. Thank you. That's passed. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hayley. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Mike. We move to item 9. Oh, sorry, I just wanted to make one point. Alderman Barton did mention new councillors this evening. We were meant to have Councillor Mike Saunders of Reform, but he's not sent apologies, has he, Matthew? No. We have tried contacting him and asking him to attend the briefing and to this meeting, but we've heard nothing. But thank you, Matthew, for chasing. We'll move to item 9, landlord and social housing policy. Who am I going to first? Amy? Oh, Jeff. Okay. Good evening, team. Over to you, Jeff.
Good evening, and good evening, councillors. We'll just give you a bit of an introduction to the report tonight, as it's the first meeting of the municipal year, and put to you a bit of a framework as to why we're here, and then talk about some of the key points in the report for you. The Social Housing and Regulation Act in 2023 introduced a new regulatory regime from April 24, and it's essential that the Council seeks assurance on adherence of its landlord services to this framework. Full Council and Cabinet will receive assurance on this adherence to the regulatory regime through the minutes from the work of the Governance and Audit Committee as the Council's Landlord Committee. Reporting in this way supports the Council in being able to evidence adherence to the regulatory framework, as the regulator will be looking at the assurance that councillors receive when an inspection takes place. This report is focused on assurance of the Council's landlord services, with particular emphasis on those of relevance to the regulatory framework. Other housing-related updates are reported separately through example the Housing External Operating Environment report to Cabinet and the annual CBH governance statement, which will come to this committee in the autumn. The regulator of social housing will be looking at the assurance that the council and its councillors are receiving on the safety, quality and decency of its homes. The council is yet to be inspected, but we anticipate that this will occur at some point in the next year and a half. Where performance does not achieve the target or deliver the required outcomes, the committee should gain assurance that reasons or mitigations exist and that scrutiny has been undertaken with any risks minimised and understood. The governance and executive route to regulatory assurance flowchart has recently been updated, and that is in the report Appendix 5. With the recent change to membership, Governance and Audit Committee members are requested to agree to attend a briefing on the regulatory framework for social housing within which the City Council operates, which will be arranged at your convenience. This Q4 2025-2026 report details the Q4 year-end performance, an update on complaints, internal audits and tenant scrutiny, a regulation update, additional regulatory assurance, and an update on development and buybacks. Subject to any questions or comments, the committee is being asked to make any comments or recommendations to the portfolio holder for housing and Colchester Borough Homes in respect of the performance, and subject to this, to the performance update in Appendix 1 and 2. And subject to any comments, note the Q4 complaints update, including Ombudsman's cases detailed at Appendix 3, and note the additional regulatory assurance being provided by CBH's board and committees for Q4, including the safety and quality standard self-assessment set out at Appendix 4. And finally, to note the update to the governance and executive route to regulatory assurance set out in Appendix 5 and the remaining updates provided in this report. Chris.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, just a couple of points from Appendix 4 relating to building safety and other asset-related KPIs from me. We ended the year in a strong overall position, which is very positive. And just electrical inspections were a focus for us because they were only at 98.3%. But at the end of May, we were at 99.47%, which is in line with our improvement programme. I'm happy to take any other questions, otherwise I'll pass over to Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'll just take committee through a couple of other key performance indicators within item 5 of the pack. Again, reiterating what Chris has said, we across the Operations Directorate ended very strongly for the year-end position. I'd like to draw attention to the antisocial behaviour section at 5.6. Whilst you'll see the significant work that's undertaken to manage antisocial behaviour, we continue to focus in that area. One thing I would like to note is that you will see a revised KPI figure for the number of cases. The appendix is in error, the number, at 37.2. It is in fact 59.58 cases per 1,000 properties. It's actually very similar to the previous year of 60.76. Moving on to voids, that was a fantastic end of year position. We achieved upper quartile performance at 42.98 days against a target of 50 days. And one thing to note is that includes all of our voids, so it's sheltered, major works, which is where there's more significant works to do, and standard voids as well. So actually to achieve that year-end position is very, very good. And finally, rent collection. The target was 98% and we achieved 99.28%, which is again very strong for the year. I'll pause there for questions on the KPIs, if anyone has any.
Thank you. Councillor Summers, I saw you first, so I'll bring you in, and then Councillor Pearson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for a very comprehensive quarterly report. It's good to see some improvements in a lot of the areas there, but one concern is obviously the homelessness, and I see that the number of households in bed and breakfast is going up and up. And that's very distressing to see, you know, on a personal level and obviously for the people involved. And I know we've done great work with the Beyond the Box, which was introduced by former portfolio holder Councillor Paul Smith. Are we looking to expand that any further? Because I know we've already taken on more, and I was wondering how much further can we go on that? Thank you.
So you're right to mention that it is an area of pressure, but obviously it's not sitting within the HRA and an obligation within the regulator. However, you're right to ask the question. We're always looking for alternative temporary accommodation options. We have 95% occupancy of Beyond the Box, and it remains our commitment to increase the availability of suitable alternative temporary accommodation to B&B. Our challenge is that we are in stark competition, both from internally within Colchester, but also outside of Colchester, with other boroughs and districts using more affordable for them, but not for us. So there is quite a lot, and it's quite complex, but we do remain committed to sourcing alternative temporary accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you both. Councillor Pearson, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's always good to see you all here, and I like to see that most of the key performance indicators are looking good. I've just got one or two questions, queries, comments to make. In 5.2, you've got two properties where asbestos has still not been assessed. Is that still the case, and are there any steps that you can take that are reasonable as far as the tenants are concerned to ensure that we do that? Because I'm anxious about the health and well-being of the tenants in those particular properties.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a constant for us. We're constantly trying to get in. It still remains the same at the moment. Asbestos and a couple of other KPIs are slightly down, and access is normally the issue, and sometimes we have to be very careful. We can't just break in, we can't just knock the door down, so we take all the precautions that we need to, but it is a focus for us. It's a constant for us to try and get in. That we want to get to 100%, absolutely.
Okay, the next one was around the electrical safety certificates, and I noticed that performance had gone down slightly, and that there was an issue with oversight of the contract. So I'm just wondering what's been put in place subsequently to ensure that that is now in a better place than it obviously was for a while.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we were at 98.3%, but we're now at the end of May 99.47%. So we work closely with the contractors to come up with a plan, and they've stuck to that plan, and we should be back to normal by the end of this month. So that's a good position for us.
Okay, the next one I've got, and I did raise this with Philip in the pre-brief, is just I get complaints from residents about the solar panels and pigeons nesting beneath them. What are we doing to redress this? Because it is a problem not for a few days, for a few weeks, but for months.
For a long time, yes, and it will be a problem. We've mentioned this at the last meeting, so just to give you a recap, so far we've spent £600,000 on preventative netting, which is a solution to keep them out. That's on 330 homes so far, and over the next 5 years we're committed to nearly £1 million on doing this work to get through that, and we're working closely with the City Council on our long-term plans, but we also, we pick them up as complaints as well, so we are on it, and we are investing, and we're focused. So
yeah, the problem with the nets, and I've actually stood and watched with residents the pigeons going around, through, under. The next one I had was, I think Councillor Summers has already raised the issue about the fact that homelessness increased, and that's something that we should all be concerned about. We're looking at the financial position of the council at the year end later on, and we know that temporary accommodation costs are a significant pressure on the budget of the council. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. But the final one for me is when I looked at the sickness absence expectation, having been responsible for the council's key performance indicators last year, I'm familiar with the sickness absence expectations across the council's workforce. I just wonder why the expectation of sickness absence is higher in CBH than it is across the majority of the staff working for the council.
That's a very good question, and we'll have to take that one away to speak to the Director of Resources. I don't have the legacy and history of the KPI setting for that. One would assume, but I don't want to do that it's because of the previous targets that we've had, and so we haven't kind of increased the target, for want of a better word. We wanted to maintain the position, but I will take that away and get you a response.
Yeah, it's just when I'm thinking about costs, that's one that, should be on everybody's radar in terms of reducing. I appreciate that for our waste services, the expectation is that there will be more on-the-job injuries, so the sickness absence rate is a bit higher, but across the rest of the council it is below what you're supposing, you're telling us is your projected expectation.
I'll take that away, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. I've got two questions, and then I've got Councillor Young after that. For me, I wanted to just say that most of the compliance does look good on the KPIs, but for 5.7, the voids, I just wondered, you talked about the different sort of factors that affect it, whether it's sheltered accommodation, whether it's a much more significant revamp. Could we see a breakdown of that? Would it be useful to break it down into those component parts so that we know if it's a more standard turnaround, then we would aim for, say, a 20-day compared to 50, etc. So that's my first question. I'll just go to the next one as well. The decent homes figure 5.5, it gives a percentage, but I just wondered what that equates to as an actual number of homes that don't meet the standard. Because I feel we're doing a very good job there, but I just wanted to understand what that meant in an actual figure. Thank you.
I'll take the voids question if that's okay. You're absolutely right, Councillor Corrie, and we can do that. We at CBH Board actually requested that breakdown as well, so that can feed through. So yeah, we can do that going forward.
Excellent, thank you.
And the same with the decent homes figure, we can give those numbers. It's not many, but I don't remember it off the top of my head, so we'll bring that forward next time.
It's something like 0.023.
Yeah.
I've seen you, Councillor Smithson, if you want to come forward. 0.023 times 6,000 or so.
Okay.
And Jeff's got his hand up. I'm welcoming Councillor Rees-Smithson forward, as he is the new portfolio holder for housing. This does refer to last year, but if it's anything good, I'm sure you can claim it. Anything bad, it wasn't you. Do you want to come in quickly, and then I'll go to Jeff?
Thank you, Chair. So I will just declare that I actually sat on the board of Colchester Borough Homes as well last year, so I do have inside knowledge on the figures. So to actually answer your point about the sickness rates, the sickness rates were actually legacy rates that were higher, and they have come down and they continue to come down, so they're now actually more in line with the council's sickness rates than they were, but the legacy rates were considerably higher. But I have no reason why. We will have to get back to you on that one. And the number of homes that haven't met the decent home standard is 14.
Excellent, thank you. Jeff, were you just going to say the same number?
That was going to be my answer, and that's out of 6,086 properties.
There you go. Thank you. Excellent. Good to see you
I
working.
found it too as well. At the end.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just doing the maths, and I would have got there too. Excellent. Thank you all for those answers. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I've got a lot of fondness for Colchester Borough Homes, and I think they do an excellent job. I was the first ever chair of CBH, so great to see that legacy continues. I'm probably one of the biggest users of the Councillor Inquiries email address, unlike some, which always gets good and positive, not always positive, but good and rapid response, which is what councillors want and need. I do want to mention, before I forget, CBH's financial inclusion team, which I don't think is included in the report, who do a fantastic job, and I've said it on many occasions, do life-changing work. So if you could send that back to Jigna and Bill and the team, I'd appreciate it. In the report, 5.10, AWAB's law. This is about damp and mould in properties. I know a lot of it's to do with how buildings, especially blocks of flats, were constructed in the 60s and 70s. 5.10 says additional requirements taking effect in October 2026. Can you tell us what those are and what measures CBH will take? Because this is a real problem all over, not just social housing, but all housing and all registered providers. But I know CBH are doing their best, but it would be reassuring, I think, for some of our tenants to know what action and measures can be taken and what additional requirements are going to come in. And for the chair and I, it's not in the report and it's probably being a bit cheeky, but it would be good to know how many, if you know, or if you can send us details of how many are on our housing needs register at the moment for an occasion we've got at the weekend. That might be useful knowledge to have. Thank you, but well done. Thank you for the report.
So if I may, just on the AWAB's law, we should have some more information on our website by the end of the week for residents to be able to pick up. But the changes basically bring in more hazards for us to monitor closely. That should happen in October this year, but it hasn't been fully confirmed. We are planning in the background to make sure that we're resourced right, we have the technical capability, and that we can report all of our information correctly and accurately. And we will be bringing on a specialist to come and do an audit on us, give us advice and give us a forward plan as well, so that we're robust and in a really good position. So thank you.
If tenants aren't, if I may, Chair, if tenants don't have access to websites very easily, how will they get that information about what can be done?
We are also, that's a good point, we are also looking to put an article in our Housing News and Views, so hopefully that will come out in the summer edition. Thank you.
And you'd like the active applicants on Gateway to Home Choice, Tim, is that right? Okay, so currently, as at now, is 2,540 for Colchester alone. Across the gateway of the 7 local authorities, there are 15,501 active applications.
Thank you. I have Councillor Parsons and then Councillor Naylor. Parsons.
Thank you. And just following up on the damp and mould issue, AWAB's law, is there any forethought that's gone into the issue of damp and mould in rural council housing in villages where they're off the gas main? Certainly I've dealt with one case as a ward councillor. You know, basically it's because of the type of housing. So it's the type of heating, the type of housing, and particularly if you've got trees overhanging your bungalow, you know, is there any sort of forward-thinking strategy on that one?
Yeah, we do have a programme, a very technical programme, that highlights properties that would be at risk at most, and we have a programme of fitting what we call switchy devices. So basically they're sensors, and they go inside the property and they can tell and detect what's going on to give us that feedback. And we've done a lot of proactive work where residents haven't contacted us, but we're noticing it on our dashboard that there is an issue, and we'll make contact with them and check it out. So we are being proactive. I think the challenge is for us is to try and get more of that equipment into properties, and we are looking at extending. We've got about 500 in so far, so quite a good proportion, and we just want to do more. We just need the money to do it, so we're focused on that.
Thank you. And just on that, I assume it is about investment and it saves money in the long run if we get that right. Okay, thank you. And Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. I just wanted, I've been thinking about 5.7 and the voids, and obviously getting those filled as quickly as possible is all our goals. And I know, having looked at this before in previous committees, that we've raised the question about introducing a stretch target. We've got a target here of 50 days, and I just would like to know, did that stretch target get introduced because it was something that was being taken away? And if it has, what is that stretch target to drive the voids down? And if not, what is the progress towards a stretch target? Thank you.
So the target of 50 days is actually upper quartile in comparison to the housemark information. So in a way, that is a stretch target as well because of some of the property conditions that are coming back to us. We are seeing an increase in much greater work required, much more cost, and increased complexity. So I'm unsure around the stretch target. I would suggest that this is quite a stretch target based on, yes, our performance is good against it, but it takes a great concerted effort, and it's been tweaking to get us to the point that we are under that target. So I can take away the stretch target. I don't recall that, so I'll take that away.
Can I just ask, so you've explained that there's a discussion ongoing at the board, or the board raised this, so it's clear that we've also brought this up. Would you be able to report back sort of where that discussion goes to, and if in the breakdown there is a stretch target for those where you can? And I think that the last point I'd add, if you would finish there, Councillor Naylor, would be, are there lessons learnt perhaps in London boroughs, other places where they have a high number of council homes, either in an ALMO or directly under council's responsibility, where they've seen good ways in which they have reduced the damage to properties or the need to have longer void periods to redecorate, to refurb, etc. I'm sure you are doing that work already, and I think I'm entrusting to you that you're having those discussions with the board already, so you will be able to come back next time and give us some of those answers. But I'll just take one more point, and then Councillor Pearson, and then I will probably wrap this discussion up, bearing in mind we've got a long agenda this evening. So Jeff, or sorry.
Yeah, so in terms of the target, a couple of years ago that target was 73 days. That moved to 50 for last year and is 48 for this year. CBH set a 5-year plan, medium-term delivery plan. That comes to an end this year, so we'll be resetting that at the end of this year, which will come to this committee.
Thank you. And that is put in context with the HRA business plan, where we actually are looking to sort of reduce the costs overall of maintenance, so that's understandable. Councillor Pearson, last.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back to that point about the state of returns, I'm just wondering, is there any reasoning behind it? Do we know what indicators have led to more dilapidated returns? Are we having problems with cuckooing, for instance, across the city?
I mean, from what I've picked up, and Amy probably add to this, there are a few instances where that happens, but it's where people can't cope with just general living and unable to arrange for clearances and things like that. I think the point I wanted to make, we have had this on the agenda before, and since then we have introduced pre-termination inspections, which have been really helpful and have helped us drive that figure down and get better results overall. And that's something we want to continue to do, because that does, we can point people in the right way to be able to help themselves help us, if you like. So that's a piece of what we've done already.
Yeah, and I just add, we're not unique with this being a challenge. I think it's a national issue, which is why the void targets and the benchmarking is much higher in other areas as well.
Thank you all. I think it's the impact of cost of living and greater inequalities. So something sadly we are seeing, but it's nice to know that discussion is happening at the board. And Esme, I'm sure you'll continue to take that to the board and the other board members who are on the council, representing the council. I will say I think we've had a good discussion, and I'll move to the recommendations, unless there's any further comment. No. So the recommendations are to make any comment and recommendation to the portfolio holder, who is here in the audience this evening, in respect of Q4 performance, subject to this, to note the performance update contained in the report and Appendix 1 and 2. Subject to any comments, note Q4 complaints update, including Ombudsman cases detailed in Appendix 3. To note the additional regulatory assurance provided by CBH's board and committees for Q4, including safety and quality standard assessments set out in Appendix 4. To note the update to the governance and executive route to regulatory assurance to set out, that is set out in Appendix 5, and remaining updates provided in this report. And to agree to attend a briefing, which we all must agree to, on the regulatory framework for social housing. So I've been assured by the answers we've had this evening, we've got a few questions that perhaps we'll hear back from, but can we agree those recommendations this evening? Thank you. Excellent. Thank you all for your attendance and your excellent answers. Thank you, Councillor Smithson, as well. We'll just pause for 1 minute, and at that point I suggest, with the technical difficulties, if anyone wants to take a comfort break for 2 or 3 minutes, please do. We'll go ahead in 2 minutes. Thank you. We'll move on. So we just have a slight technical problem where the subtitles are coming up twice, but that's so that the public can see our excellent comments at double time. We will move on to item 11, the draft statement of accounts 2005-2006. So the committee will consider a draft report, and that's a comment we will make later, which asks us to note the draft statement of accounts 2025-2026 to enable the publication of the accounts by the deadline of the 30th of June. So we are to note, and we have the finance team here this evening to introduce the report for us to note. I will go to Anna first. We have Bernard and we have David here. We also have Emma from KPG, our auditors, online, ready to come forward at any moment, because Emma is very keen to ensure her assurance is all over this auditing process as well. So, Anna, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I will, after I make my opening comments, Chair, I'm going to ask if I can bring in Emma, if that's okay. So, good evening, everybody. For the benefit of the public, I just want to explain that we have just had an hour's accounts workshop to go through what I've called an understanding of the accounts, a bit of a demystifying or myth busting about what statutory accounts are about. The other thing we discussed was that when the accounts were published and the papers were published about a week ago, we did publish a version of the draft accounts which we weren't entirely happy with. There were reasons why that wasn't up to scratch. We had information late from third-party providers, and which we had chased incessantly, but to no avail. We then tried to post that information to the general ledger to update the accounts, and the general ledger had failed. Well, not fortuitously, but at the time when we were having to post the journal. That was material enough for me to decide that we needed to have another version of the accounts, which we have, and that was issued this morning. I understand that the committee haven't had very long to look at it, and that is noted for the record. We went through and talked about the changes. The most material changes between the version that was issued last week and the version that was issued this morning was around the revaluations, and our chief accountant Bernard went through some detail as to how that was treated in the accounts, which resulted in a surplus figure in the comprehensive and income and expenditure statement turning to a deficit. And then he explained how that was treated in the capital adjustment account. That was the most material item as a result of the changes, but that has now been explained, and that has now been sorted to my I'm okay with that, is what I'm trying to say. The other thing I want to say is that these are draft accounts, and I know that we've said this several times tonight, but it's important that they are draft. What this means is that they are going to be provided to the auditors, so the auditors can start the audit process. They are due to land with us in July, and that these accounts being discussed this evening at the committee are I bring them to committee as a courtesy. It's not a mandatory function. It is considered good practice, but not all local authorities do what I've just done. It's important that we hit the statutory deadline, and at this point, of the 30th of June, at this point, Chair, I'd like to ask us to bring in our auditor, KPMG, Emma Lan.
Emma, please come forward.
Yes, hi.
Yes,
hi. Yeah. I'm afraid there's really all so it's to support and the deadline is the end of You can choose
to
miss that.
miss
However,
that. However,
given the current
the
focus
current
on
focus
moving
on
the
moving the
accounts process
accounts
forward,
process forward,
that would only really be
that
done
would
for
only really
an
be done
exceptional
for
reason,
exceptional
or if Anna
reason,
was
or if Anna
very
was very
unhappy that she didn't have
unhappy
the
that she didn't
material.
have the
Sorry, I'm
material.
going to stop you. We're just having a bit of a problem with the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apologies.
We've muted the room, so she should be able to carry on. Carry on and then put it on mute, please.
Cuts the sound. So Emma, please do try carrying on as loud and as clearly as you can, and hopefully we'll hear. I'm not sure if it's the heat and the connection, but please try again and continue. Owen, could you unmute Emma for us, please? Thank you. Please try again now, Emma.
Okay, can you hear? Is that better?
It's even quieter now.
I've got an echo still.
That's better now, thank you.
Okay. So all I was saying is yes, the statutory deadline is the end of June. If the council were to miss that deadline, Anna would need to publish a statement explaining the reasons why, and generally they would need to be exceptional reasons. So previously it's been the accounts just haven't been prepared. So as long as Anna has got a set of accounts which she is materially happy with, then that is the right place to do. On the publishment of the draft accounts on the website, that effectively starts the inspection period, where members of the public are able to inspect the accounts and the supporting documentation, and any questions or objections could be raised to myself as the external auditor. We will commence our audit process over the summer, and the backstop date for the accounts this year is the end of January. So that will be the final sign-off point, and before then you would obviously need to approve the final version of the accounts once they've been through that audit process.
Thank you. Anna, just before I bring you in, I just want to ask, from my experience as portfolio holder for resources previously and our difficult work with BDO, I've found that KPMG are much more rigorous and very much on top of it, and have worked with this committee over the last 2 years to get greater assurance with members, with finance officers and with the auditors themselves. So I just want to ask Emma if she's comfortable with the way we're proceeding this evening, with these draft accounts coming to them as auditors and understanding that they can take those from there. You're saying you are comfortable with that, and only if there are exceptional circumstances should we do anything else.
Oh, can you unmute Emma, please?
Emma, if you could unmute yourself, thank you.
Yeah. So the audit process starts when we have a draft set of accounts. So it is not for me to comment yet on the draft set of accounts. It is for Anna to decide as Section 151 that she is comfortable that the draft set of accounts are ready to be published and ready to be audited, from which my understanding is that she is. Therefore, we will go through the audit process. Clearly, through that process, there may well be adjustments that need to be made, and we will go through that process as we did. And that is as standard as all other councils will be doing.
Excellent, thank you. Anna, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Corey. Thank you, Emma. So just to pick up on a couple of points that I neglected to say earlier, it is a statutory deadline, and just because we've missed it in the past doesn't mean we need to miss it again when it's not necessary that we do. I am happy and I'm confident with the draft that's put in front of you, that is of sufficient quality, and that it's for the audit to commence, and that it's materially correct. And in accounting terms, that means a lot. So if it was materially incorrect, it would be very remiss of me to put the accounts on the website to commence the audit.
So I am happy that it's materially correct as your section 151. It is a statutory deadline that if we miss, for all the reasons that Emma has discussed, and even in the workshop, Bernard has discussed it. So the other thing I wanted to say is it will not affect the audit opinion. We already know we are going to get a disclaimed set of accounts, and there is nothing that is going to change that. Changing the draft won't change it, even going through a whole set of accounts to prepare a final set of accounts. Emma has made that clear, and she's going to bring an item on build back in July, and in July she will tell you, and she can tell you herself now, that will not change. We are going to get a disclaimed set of accounts for 25-26 because we've had 4 years of disclaimed accounts. For 24-25 was the first year that the auditors were able to make some progress. The problem is the opening balances, and Emma will discuss this in more detail in July, but we would have to reopen every single year previous to that. So the last 4 years would have to be reopened, would have to be audited completely every year with support from us and support from the auditors, and it's never going to happen. There's not enough resources in the world to make that happen. So whatever we do this evening, and if we hold it back, I can tell you as your section 151, it's not going to materially change anything to hold it back until July. All it's going to do is miss the deadline, and it's not going to change the opinion at all.
Thank you, Anna. Unless you want to come in right now, Emma, I'll just move on around the table. And I'll just say, I see 2 hands, I'll just say a couple of things before I move to Councillor Pearson and Councillor Naylor. So during the workshop session that we had, we did ask a number of questions. The most important point I take from that is that we wanted to make this very clearly stated as a draft report, because it wasn't clearly stated enough, whether that is sort of a watermark or very clear statements that it's draft, and officers took that on board. Point 2, we did discuss around unusable reserves and understood what unusable reserves meant. On page 67, it does have 2 notes, note 26 and note 27, which somewhat explains that. But if there's anything more that can be added from the explanation we heard in that workshop session, then very happy with that. And David, we spoke about the HRA split, page 91, and that being explained as well, please. So that leaves me just to say one more point. The recommendation we have in front of us is for the committee to note the report and the contents of the report and the accounts attached. That is the one recommendation. I've got some questions, but I'll go to other councillors first. Councillor Pearson and then Councillor Naylor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think it would be helpful, given that we had quite a detailed overview of these draft accounts prior to, but there may be members of the public who are tuning in either tonight or subsequently, just to have a brief overview of what we've heard in terms of the significant figures in the accounts. So that's the first thing I would suggest. Second thing is, based on what I've heard so far this evening, I'm more than happy to agree to publication of the draft accounts, but I just think that we ought to have a proviso in the minutes this evening that indicates that the original public draft that went out with the governance and audit agenda last week did have some material inaccuracies, and that the latest set that's been provided to members has only come in today, so we haven't had the opportunity to fully scrutinise what's before us before we publish it. But I accept the reassurance of our Section 151 officer to have those published on the 30th of June.
Thank you. So, Matthew, I'm just looking to you to note that. So we had a draft statement of accounts, we've had an updated statement. And Anna, would it be right to say one of the biggest examples of change is down to valuations, and therefore we could put that in as an example in the note, and that we've had updated from this evening?
It is in the narrative note. So there is a line in the narrative note that explicitly talks about, it's incorrect because it says a surplus of 1.4 million, but it's a 9.7 million pound deficit surplus, and Councillor Pearson was correct in picking that up. It's 9.7 million surplus to 1.4 million deficit. That is the most material impact of what we've discussed this evening. So we do need to we need to make that adjustment. But I'm perfectly comfortable with what Councillor Pearson has just said.
Thank you. And Matthew hopefully will have that wording contained in the report, in the minutes. Councillor Naylor, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think a number of us on the committee are uncomfortable with the fact that the second set of draft accounts arrived at 1:30, which was only 2 hours before I needed to leave to get here to make sure I wasn't late for budget workshop. Unfortunately, the impact of that, because like many here, I also work, was that I've had no sight at all of those accounts. So I felt largely unable to participate in that budget workshop. And, you know, I feel very uncomfortable that as elected representatives, we're not able to fulfill that function. And that's notwithstanding all of the points that Section 151 officer made about this being on her cognizance, and that's her professional judgment. But we too have a role to play in this process, and we are important to that process because the reason we're here is to represent the residents who elected us. I for one, am not comfortable proceeding where I'm not able to look a single resident in the eye tomorrow if I'm asked to answer questions about the second set of accounts that were presented to us 2 hours before. And in and of itself, that should not be seen as a criticism of the officers, because it's not. But it remains a fact that councillors have been unable to familiarise themselves, some to a greater degree than others, myself not at all because of what I've just explained, have not been able to familiarise myself at all with the second set of accounts and felt at a disadvantage on behalf of the residents that I represent, therefore. I remain very uncomfortable about that. I'm obviously not sure what others' views about that is, but I feel it's very important to put on the record that it's not the only part of the process that we're taking part in here today, and actually, under the normal circumstances, a draft set of accounts for this part of the process ought to have been given to us a week before this meeting. And in fact, we had it 2 hours before I had to leave for this meeting. And we're all at work too. And I'm extremely uncomfortable with that. And I'm happy to, at this point, move a motion that we postpone this and arrange a special meeting, thereby allowing members of this committee to look at those accounts and endeavour to meet that deadline that Section 151 officer has set out. I think this is a very, very important point, and I hope members will see that this is something we ought to consider very carefully. But I would like to put that motion, Chair, and I can either put it now or allow people to debate it and put that motion.
Thank you. I'd prefer to take a bit more time around the table. Thank you. Matthew, was there anything you wanted to add as a Democratic Services Officer?
No, Chair, it's a very minor point in the scheme of things, largely material, but the supplementary agenda was circulated at 10:38 this morning. Just if that assists the committee, I appreciate it. It's a tiny difference in time in the scheme of things.
Thank you. And in that supplementary agenda, we had page 2, which outlined the 9 points or 8 points that covered the differences to the agenda and the version attached some time ago on the 16th of June. I fully understand the comments being made by councillors. During the workshop, I definitely brought up any questions I had that I wanted to be reassured of. And I do have one more question about pensions, which I'll come to. But I think it's a matter for the committee to decide, but I am always reassured by officers who are here to do the work for us. And the officers upon whom this rests, which is the Section 151 officer, to put this to the auditors who then will go through that detailed work. We are just to note this evening, and we can continue to look at these draft reports and bring up any comment to the Section 151 officer. I'll leave it there and go to Councillor Young. That's the next person I've seen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The idea that the public are waiting with bated breath for us to publish the draft statement of accounts or note it, and then they're going to read them. I mean, up and down Forest Road, I'm sure they're speaking of very little else. Not the case. I thought the workshop was really helpful. The workshop was really helpful, and I'm glad we had it. And the advice from our Section 151 officer is very robust, very strong. We don't have to take it, but I think if we're going to move this forward, I don't see, and I think Anna said this earlier, that another report in a few days isn't going to make any difference. This is the report. I think the workshop helped. I was fortunate enough to have time to read this today before coming here tonight. So I would support moving ahead, noting the draft statement and get them out to KPM so that KPMG can start doing their work. I think that's important. And then when we have an approved audited statement of accounts, then if the public want to look at them, then they'll be there and we can have confidence that that we've looked at it and it's been given full assurance from our officers and from our auditors.
Thank you. I have Anna and then Councillor Bentley. I just want to say I've commented on a number of notes to be attached to this decision so far, and I may suggest one more, which is if there are any significant discrepancies of any kinds that we as a panel are informed of that. But I believe, as Councillor Young has just explained, which reiterates what Anna has said before, that this is a draft and there wouldn't be any sort of substantial benefit in not noting them this evening that would sort of prevent the process going forward and see any significant change. But I'll go to you, Anna, and then to Councillor Bentley.
In any normal circumstance, without the auditors having even looked at the accounts, we can sit here and say we don't believe there's any material misstatements, but the auditors, as they go through their process, could find 1,000 reasons why they believe there's material misstatements, but we just don't know that yet. I don't feel that there are, in terms of what we've done to start the audit. This is effectively what this process is. Now, there's going to be lots of months of work, and the other thing I wanted to say is that what we do in Colchester, which is rather unusual, is that every meeting of the GNA we have, auditors are invited and they will bring an update on how they're faring with the review and the audit of the accounts. So you won't wait months and months ahead to find out if there are issues. What Emma will do, and she's going, as I said previously, she'll be coming in July. She can talk about what the update has been. They will start the process in July. So there will be some auditing, not a lot, but there will be some auditing. It really kicks off more around August. But I've agreed with Emma, she's going to bring back a build back plan, which basically says what I told you, that there is virtually no way that we are going to not receive a disclaimed audit opinion before we go to LGR. And we've had that conversation with Emma, and Emma will bring back her reasons as to why that is. But fundamentally, you've had 4 years of disclaimed accounts, which we cannot change now. That's history. We'd have to reopen every single year. We and they do not have the resources to do that. It would be financially negligent of us to put all the resources to do that. To what end? So it's working its way through the FRC and the auditing firms in terms of how are we going to do that, and she will talk about that next week. But you'll have a lot of opportunity to talk about the accounts. This is not the only one, and you're going to hear about it a lot until the final accounts are presented to you for discussion, and your input will be sought.
And we'll finally get to approve the accounts once they've been audited. Okay, thank you. Councillor Bentley, please.
Thank you very much. So, I've been around here quite a long time. I don't think I've ever known a report to come out the morning of a committee meeting on something quite substantial as this. And certainly, if we got close to that, in the old days when we just didn't rely on people sending emails and then people hopefully glued to their devices to see them, a phone call would go out to say there is an important paper you should read before tonight. As a learning curve, if this should ever happen again, then please ask Democratic Services to contact committee members to say there's a paper you should read. I haven't had a chance to read this. I didn't even know it was being sent out until I was informed late this afternoon. That is unacceptable to me as a member. So please make sure that is heard loud and clearly and never happens again. Secondly, because I have been around such a long time, I do know of councils elsewhere, one not very far from here, who've run into lots of troubles because members haven't asked necessarily the right questions around accounts. People may not be glued to this and very interested in it. They are when it goes wrong, I can assure you. I'm not suggesting this will go wrong, but I think we are right and proper to ask these serious questions. Now, me personally, I have no doubt that what's being said is absolutely correct. I respect officers, certainly 151 officers. I've worked with many of them over many, many years. But I have to ask myself, have I done the due diligence? I haven't personally, because of the way and the manner in which these papers were sent tonight. That is an error by this council, and I feel more confident if I was able to have the chance to go through it, notwithstanding the hour we had. Again, we had an hour, but that was an hour before the meeting took place. And I think we do need a bit more time to go through and satisfy ourselves. We can come back in a few days' time if necessary. So we've done that, and I think it's now the right and proper time we can give that assurance and still hit that deadline. But please, can we not be in this position again? It's not fair to members.
Thank you. I'll just say to Emma if she'd like to come back in to make any points in response to those just made. And then I will ask a question that perhaps I'll give some time for a response from Bernard, perhaps. I just wanted to ask myself, page 30 in the statement, about how we deal with contributions to the Essex Pensions Fund, which is quite complicated. I just wondered if there would be any way in which you can explain that can be publicly understood. And if not, I'm happy to take an email about it because I think I understand it, but I think it's always useful to get a full finance brief on it. In the meantime, Emma, if you'd like to come forward and make any further comment from what you've heard around the table, please.
I think from an audit perspective, no, my position stands. There is a statutory deadline of the end of June. It is up to the council to make that decision as to whether they publish their draft set of accounts on time to start that inspection period. You know, that is a decision I absolutely hear, and it is something we have previously commented on in terms of the timeliness of reporting, etc. But as Anna has said, there does appear to have been some reasons for that this year. But equally, the council members do need to have time to digest and challenge. I think what's important to remember, as we have said a lot of times, is that it's this draft, and what I would expect to happen is members to use this period, particularly the inspection period, to look through the accounts, raise any questions. That's exactly what that inspection period time is for. And they can either be raised to officers or to myself if they are more formal questions that need to be raised. But I say it is a decision, obviously, that members need to take today as to the next steps forward. But as Anna said, she's here just for noting, I guess. So that's with you. But the statutory deadline is the 30th. Yes, if you choose not to meet that deadline, you will need to publish the reasons why you have missed that deadline on the website.
Thank you, Emma. So therefore, I'll just summarise where we've got to this evening. So Emma has just helpfully outlined that by noting the report this evening, we'd be entering the inspection period, which at any point councillors can continue to look through the report and raise any concerns to Emma as our auditor and Anna as our Section 151 officer. We have that period in which to do that. The 30th of June is the deadline set by the government. I did just hear whispers of what's the sanction of that, and that's sort of a public naming and shaming, which we have been through before. It's an element of confidence, and it depends whether or not we feel that that is something we can understand. For me, again, I have looked through the report using the sort of executive statement as well that was given on the appendix, and I am comfortable with the assurances given and comfortable with what Emma has just outlined, that we can continue to raise elements from this report during this inspection period. I would be happy enough to go forward, but that's based on personal time that I've been able to put to this, and I understand other members have not. So what I need to do is take Councillor Naylor's suggestion, and then I will go to Councillor Young's proposal to agree and to note. Councillor Parsons, I saw you indicate.
Yeah, just this would be a very quick question to Anna. Given the very short timescale we've had on this with the improved set of accounts coming out, you've told us that you're confident that they're ready to be published. Could you just give us an assurance as Section 151 officer, you've actually had time to read through these and consider them? Just a little bit more explicitly, thank you.
The assurance, this is not my area of expertise. I surround myself with experts. I know enough to ask questions of the team who's prepared the accounts, and I've asked questions to enable me to be assured enough to present them to you this evening.
Thank you, Anna. Respond? Yep, quickly.
I'd have to say that I was more confident before you gave that answer, I'm afraid.
If I can just explain, you don't hire me as your Section 151 to produce a set of accounts. I have reviewed enough information and asked the right questions, which is what you pay me to do. To ask the right questions of the team in order to get the assurances that are required in order to bring these to you. So I can't put it any other way. The only way I can give you utmost confidence is if I prepared the set of accounts myself, and I can't and I don't. That's not what you pay me for. You pay me to ask the right questions of the team in order to bring the assurances to you, because they provide me with assurances when I ask them the questions that are required.
Thank you, Anna, and Councillor Chris Pearson.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to remind you that I'd already made a proposal when I first started speaking on this item before anyone else, and that was that we publish the accounts based on what we've heard, but with the minutes indicating that there are some concerns and anxieties that have been expressed.
Thanks for that reminder. That does help. So I can take them in that order then. So we have put down a number of notes alongside, one with it draft, one establishing, and I do remember now, we checked in terms of what Matthew had heard in terms of the process and the timing of what we have received. So I do then have that motion, apologies, Councillor Pearson first. So we have the two motions on the table, the first motion being to approve with those caveats that have been discussed, and then the second one being to Councillor Naylor, what was your proposal? Was it to delay?
Thank you, Chair. My proposal was that we delay and postpone to another meeting, ideally before the 30th of June, which is possible, to allow members who have not had the opportunity to review that revised document to do so, and to ask any queries that I might or others might wanted to have asked had they have had the opportunity to review that, and then we bring it back for a vote. I think, sorry, not a vote, to note, but I do think also Councillor Bentley made a very good point that one of our first duties as members of this committee is to do the due diligence. So that is why I'm requesting it, and I want to make clear again, it is no reflection on anything that the Section 151 officer has said about what's in her gift, but I also want to note that it's been said a number of times that this council pursues best practice. And the reason we have this process is it's considered best practice to have these draft accounts before this committee. So I am proposing that we postpone noting this to allow members to look at it properly.
Thank you. Okay. One potential further compromise I could add, that would add to the first proposal, is to say, is there any way, Matthew, in which we can delay the sort of minuting of this meeting and the decision until, say, close of play Friday, to ensure that councillors can review and post any more information or any further comment? Is that at all possible? But if not, tell me. Is there any way in which we can say the decision this evening is taken, but has a period of review until close of play Friday, for example?
Chair, in short, no, I don't believe there is. The committee is capable of delegating the power to the accounts to yourself or the group spokespersons at a future date. They've done that before. In terms of holding an additional meeting, the 30th publication deadline is next Tuesday. We have meetings on Monday and Tuesday and Thursday of this week, and I think an extra meeting isn't possible, just to be clear on that. But if the committee wished to delegate the authority to note the accounts to yourself in conjunction with the group spokespersons, that would be an option potentially.
Thanks, Matthew. That's the third option then. So we have the proposal of just moving forward as per Councillor Pearson, option number 1, with the notes that we have run through a number of times. Proposal number 2 from Councillor Naylor, and then proposal number 3 is to delegate to me as chair with group leaders included, group spokes included, to have that delegated by close of play Friday to sign them, just to give further time to note the report. So therefore, Bernard, please.
Fortunately, I would not be here to be able to come to any meeting at all, because I'm out of the country, so I don't know. So I think you do need to know that.
Thank you. So you're not here to attend any other meeting, no. But does that stop the third option of delegated authority?
The third option is me personally. I think that can happen.
That can happen.
Oh, yeah. The third option, I think that can happen. I mean,
okay.
I can communicate on a one-to-one basis, but I don't think I'll be able to attend any meeting.
Thank you, Bernard. Okay, so we can take a vote, but just to be clear, via consensus, do we all feel option 3 or proposal 3 is more consensually achievable? So, okay, Councillor Pearson, on that note, would you accept proposal 3, and Councillor Naylor, would you accept proposal 3 instead? Reluctantly. Repeat that on the microphone, Councillor Naylor. Okay.
Reluctantly, Chair.
Thank you. Therefore, I put to you proposal 3, which is to note this report, and by close of play Friday, I will take delegated authority to sign the, or to note the document unless I receive any other further contributions to the contrary from group spokespersons. Okay? Right, we agreed on that? Agreed. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for your interest and participation. We're perfectly at 17:31. We'll have a... Sorry. Very dyslexic and whatever. Dyscalculus. Thank you. We're all sweating here. You made me sweat even more. Let's have a break for 9 minutes. Come back at 19:40, please. 19:40. Was that? Do you know? Is that a bird? Okay, good evening. Owen, are we ready to go? Thank you, folks. Welcome back. Welcome back to those watching. So we move on to item 11.2, review of the governance framework and draft annual governance statement 25-26. The committee will consider a report that asks that if we've reviewed the effectiveness of the council's internal control systems for 25-26 financial year, which is required for the 25-26 statement of accounts in accordance with the council's duty to produce an annual governance statement. And we have Hayley here once again. Hayley, over to you, and we have Anna supporting as well.
Thank you, Chair. So, as you state, this report asks the committee to consider and note the review of the council's governance framework and to approve the draft annual governance statement 2025-26. For the new members of the committee who have not reviewed an annual governance statement previously or heard me speak about one, I'll just give you a brief outline of its purpose and how it's put together. The annual governance statement, otherwise known as AGS, is the council's formal statement on the effectiveness of governance, risk management and internal control. It is required under the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015 and forms part of the Statement of Accounts. And once agreed by this committee, on the presumption that it is, it will be signed by the leader and chief executive. It explains how decisions are made, how risks are managed, and where improvements are needed. It's compiled from various sources, including a full annual review of governance arrangements, internal audit opinion, external audit findings, and I think the next item that you've got is the audit tracker from Bernard, risk management and service assurance. I also have one-to-one interviews with all members of the senior leadership board and key officers, including the Section 151 officer, the monitoring officer and the interim director of estates. Now, some of those officers are in the room and I'm hopefully that they would agree those conversations are quite robust. I asked some interesting questions, I think it's a good way to describe them, and I get some very good, honest answers about how we are operating as an organisation. So the annual governance statement is assessed, so that information is assessed against the 7 principles of good governance outlined in the Delivering Good Governance in Local Government document. So if you haven't read that one, it's a good read. And it's on the outline of the 7 principles is on page 212 of the agenda for you. So an overall assurance is that the council's governance arrangements are considered effective overall, and internal audit has given a positive assurance opinion. But there are some areas that require strengthening, as the controls. They're not demonstrations that those controls have failed, but they are areas that need improving. And they're included in an action plan for 26-27. That will be reported back to yourselves later on this year, around about November, December time, as an update on the actions that have been undertaken, and you'll have another chance to comment on them. So several areas improved, progress from last year, several areas improved, including procurement and financial reporting. I know we've had a robust conversation about the statement of accounts this year, but it has improved on previous years. Some items remain ongoing from the last year, particularly finance, fraud and project management, and these have been picked up in the key issues table at the end of the statement, and that includes completion of the Financial Management Code assessment, strengthening anti-fraud arrangements and awareness, improving consistency in project and programme management, addressing safeguarding and compliance issues within Leisure World, strengthening oversight of major risks such as Northern Gateway, and addressing financial system limitations. Now, as I say, they are not indicators that there have been failings. There are areas that are identified where improvements would be sought. The conclusion is the overall governance remains sound. There's clear control improvements are identified and captured in the 26-27 action plan, and these will be monitored by the committee through the year, and also our internal audit process. So the committee are asked to consider and note the review of the compliance with the 7 principles and to approve the draft annual governance statement for 25-26. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayley. Very comprehensive report. One question from me, as I haven't seen any other hands shoot up. It was in reference to the sort of IT financial systems, page 224. I remember having some briefing on that from Anna towards the end of last municipal year. I just wondered, Hayley, if there's anything more from you on that, or whether you, Anna, could add any more. It's, so the task or the action is to ensure delivery of a joint options appraisal with the North East Essex Partner Councils, and that's to happen over the summer. I'll go to Anna on that. Anna, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So yes, we are currently undertaking a full options appraisal. We're having conversations with our unitary partners in North East Essex and also the county about the best approach. We currently have a financial system which is being de-supported. It's on best endeavours, last endeavours with a current supplier, one advanced, and it has been so for over a year now. So in order to ensure that we are robust in our system, that we are going as fast as we can to complete a full options appraisal, and it's coming to Cabinet. It's on the forward plan in early September. Probably that's all I can say at the moment because it's being worked through as we speak.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for that assurance. Councillor Pearson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I've sat here over the years in governance and audit and seen these reports, and I know that Tia produced some detailed information to us, but I'm also sitting here reflecting on the fact that we ultimately had to review in its entirety Colchester Commercial Holdings, which hadn't been picked up before. We've had to do similarly with Northern Leisure, which hadn't been picked up before. There is another area that we'll be looking at later on that hadn't been picked up before. So I just wonder whether when we look at this, we look through rose-tinted glasses.
Lindsay, to come back on that one.
Councillor Pearson, I probably would just point out that they all of those issues relate to, you know this, to CCHL, hence why the whole review of that was triggered a couple of years ago and significant changes were made, but they are all relating back to one issue. I think, Hayley, what you are showing here is across the whole council, you giving assurance. Is that correct?
Yes, and some of them are historical issues. So the one thing that I didn't cover off in my introduction was the items on this report are subject to any findings that the external auditors find during their review of the statement of accounts. So some of these issues are historical and they're picked up by the auditors from previous year's accounts. So they're not new items, they are historic going back, but we need to make sure that we do thorough reviews of them. So it's a whole council process. It includes our companies, it includes all of those governance arrangements, but it does also include items that are picked up by the auditors, and we change that if we have to, we reflect that in a revised annual governance statement later on in the year.
Thank you. I believe I saw Councillor Naylor and then Councillor Bentley. Was that correct? Councillor Naylor.
I think I was after the others, but right. Thank you. Okay. The whole and thank you, Hayley, for your report. One of the things we often talk about as members is some of the bigger projects that we're all keen to see delivered, and one of the things that we're quite keen to get even better at is nailing the risks around those projects, and just be, good to have an update on your on the work that's going on around that. And Chair, if I may, I might wish to come back. Thank you.
Absolutely, and obviously for those new members of the committee, you do receive risk reports twice a year. You receive a year-end report and you receive a mid-year report, and that covers the council's strategic risks. And Councillor Naylor is quite right. So for a little while we've been talking about project risks because that's not been reflected in that reporting that has come through. The last risk report we started to introduce the project risk reporting. That process is being refined, so I've been working with the PMO, the Project Management Office, to look at how we capture and report those risks. So I've actually got a report going to Senior Leadership Board tomorrow, and I'll be talking to them about the changes that we've been making to the process and the more digital approach that we're taking that captures those risks to enable a much more comprehensive reporting programme. Your next risk report is next month, where you will see the year-end report for risk management, the strategic risk register, the risk management strategy, and we'll also be covering project risks for you there in more detail. And as I said, when I reported it last time, we're refining that process. So I'll be bringing some more bits to you to understand what it is that you want to see and how we can report that in this forum.
Thank you. It's an ongoing process, but clearly we can address it in more detail next time. But Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Chair. Hayley, what I think would be give us some comfort is some sort of timeline when we can expect this risk reporting and risk management around projects to be introduced. I appreciate there's development work ongoing, but we are quite keen to actually see it come online.
It was reported to you last time, so there was an extra table in the report last time with the project risks in. So at the moment, the reporting process is using spreadsheets. What we're doing is just changing that to a digital process. So you will see that as we develop through the year, but the actual reporting has already started and you'll see more of that at the next report.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Bentley, then Councillor Parsons. Thank you.
Thank you. My question is not similar, and an excellent report. So this is very, very good, and things are improving. And the last conversation we just had should reflect the fact that it's much better than it has been. So you're quite right, and colleagues across the table who weren't here before actually have done a great job. So thank you very much. It still means we have to ask the difficult questions and practical questions. And on the risk register, certainly on projects, there's lots of projects. There are some projects we are delivering with other partners and indeed with government money. It would be good to see a regular, not half a year, a regular risk register on each of those, because we're responsible to the government, i.e. the taxpayer, for those. So I can think of one that I used to be involved in, which was St Boswell's. I think Greece is another one. All these are great things, but we ought to have a regular risk register so we can see and have an oversight of that. I suggest that's once a quarter, and the strategic risk register should also be once a quarter as well. I think it's good governance for any council, however big or small they are, for members to see that risk register. Sometimes that is the Cabinet, sometimes it's our committee, sometimes it's both. I think that would be extremely good, and make sure that we can pick up or certainly question anything in case it goes wrong. We hope it doesn't, but that's why we have a risk register, isn't it, to make sure they don't. But overall, this is excellent. I think that's going forward. What we have here in front of us is extremely good, very well laid out, and may I say, brilliantly written as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just say, Hayley's commented about next meeting, where we will have a raft of risk focuses, and also to understand how regularly Cabinet see those risks as well, because I understand there has been greater focus upon risk. I was involved in meeting with our, can't remember the company now, but we had a good session on risk. And I think that the Cabinet are even more focused with LGR going forward on what is deliverable and what risks are involved in those. So I think we can take forward some of these points and perhaps at next meeting look at the recommendations that come out of what we've seen improve, and what you're promising, Hayley, and what the Cabinet are seeing, and then decide the regularity of what we need to see. Lindsay, please.
I was just going to add in, as the overall programme sponsor for the Levelling Up programme and for the town deal, they do have their own quite rigorous governance processes, and risk reporting is regularly carried out as part of that. So pulling together, an overview of that should be pretty straightforward, and we can make sure that that is done as part of this.
Excellent, thank you. Hayley's noting that down, something to show us next time round. Excellent, thank you. Councillor Parsons.
Thank you. Hayley, thank you for this. Can I just take you to the main framework we've got on page 216, the bundle? Which is entitled, members of the public, Elements of the Governance Framework. We've got strategic plan, strategic risk register, constitution, ethical framework, whole list of stuff, code of conduct for members. Don't know if there's one for officers as well, might hear that. But what we've got is a range. What I'm not seeing there is anything about the depth. Now, in terms of good governance, this is actually really important. The Enron scandal happened because there was a lack of depth. In a previous life, I was counsellor on another authority, and shortly after I became a counsellor, that authority discovered that its leisure company had a £300,000 overspend. No one knew that except the chief executive of that leisure company. There was I think there were 2 councillors on the board. And one of the lessons we took away from that situation as a council was there must be deep governance, which means things like councillors who are on the board of another company should be able to meet with the middle management, get a tour around the place without the chief executive being present. Now, what's happening in terms of that kind of deep governance? Thank you.
I think it's very much there. And interestingly, the chief executive's just left the room, so we can talk without the chief executive.
So what I would say is later on this year, so towards the autumn, you will have another report, which is a review of the council's code of corporate governance. So the evidence that you're talking about in terms of these items is in that review of the code of corporate governance. So the annual governance statement is an overview. It brings together all of the documentation that we look at, all of the documentation we have in the council. It doesn't do the deep dive into those particular areas on there because the code of corporate governance will do that. So when I report back to you, it will be around in November again. The code will cover all of those 7 areas, and it goes into very specific detail about what elements we have in the council that gives us the assurance that the code is being appropriately adopted and adhered to. So hopefully that gives you some reassurance. You will get that deep dive into terms of the governance arrangements and the strong governance framework that we have. But in terms of the ability for members to meet with people, that is always there. We have never prohibited any member from asking to meet with officers. They don't have to meet with service directors. They don't even have to meet with the managers down. If they would like to meet with staff at all levels in the organisation, that is always available. And what we do as well is we have an opportunity every year as part of our good governance processes. You as a committee will have individual meetings or have a meeting with the auditors. So both external audit and internal audit will meet in private with you as a committee without any officers present. So for the next meeting in July, you have the year-end report from our internal auditors coming, and we have programmed them to arrive an hour earlier to meet in private with yourselves to raise any issues or concerns you may have about the organisation for them to review. There are no officers present in that. So at no point would we ever oppose any member asking to meet with officers.
Thank you, Hayley.
That's reassuring, thank you. And officers' code of conduct?
Yes, there is one. The same as there's a members' code of conduct.
Chair, I've got one more question, but it's on a slightly different issue and I don't want to interrupt the flow, so perhaps I can come back.
Okay, as long as it's concise. I just wanted to say in response to your point as well, Hayley's made it very clear, and I'm really reassured by the processes in place in the council. We have improved them over time, absolutely, and colleagues such as Councillor Naylor, Councillor Summers, Councillor Sunnock are on the Governance and Audit Committee over the last few years, and Councillor Pearson too, will say we've seen a vast sort of greater amount of depth over time. And tonight we've got Amphora on our agenda to look at their business, and then we've got a deep dive into Colchester Northern Leisure Park. So we're doing those deep dives, absolutely. So I'm quite assured, although I won't be able to be present for one part of that agenda, that we will be doing that work. And Hayley, thank you for your work and your response to that. Councillor Bentley, I've had you already, haven't I? So therefore, Councillor Parsons, I'll come back to you.
Thank you. Page 226, Leisure World. We've got a comment, significant issues are raised during the internal audit process relating to safeguarding training, as well as receipt of non-compliance letters from Ofsted referencing staff training and sharing of policies. Ofsted and safeguarding, that is a huge issue to the extent that any school that was to get that would get an automatic inadequate rating. So my question on that is, if we had both it was picked up in both the internal audit process and the Ofsted non-compliance letter, which one came first and why was it not addressed before we got the second one?
I think with those items, they've come from two different sources, but actually occurred at the same time. So very similar timings. And with regards to the Ofsted one, it was to do with the swimming clubs. Those clubs have been paused whilst they review their processes, review the offering for children during the holidays to make sure that they are appropriate. With regards to the safeguarding training and the health and safety records, we've been dealing with that situation and that training is being brought up to date. But it was just coincidence, like a lot of these things are, when one thing happens, then you find something else at the same time.
Excellent, thank you, members. Then we can move to the recommendations. We have recommended decisions to consider and note the review of the Council's compliance with the 7 principles of good governance, including the review of effectiveness of the internal control arrangements, and then to approve the draft annual governance statement. I've definitely been assured, and thanks again, Hayley, for the rigorous report. Can we take...
Sorry, yes, I do support all that. I just wanted to, I did request them to see the strategic risk register every quarter. I know other people agree with that, but I certainly would like to see it, because that's what we should be doing in this committee.
Lindsay, you said there was a possibility of bringing together some of those reports. That was to do with projects.
So the strategic, that's the strategic. It should be updated continually.
Let's see.
Sending it to us.
Should be pretty realistic. Hayley?
Absolutely. So the strategic risk register is reviewed monthly by board. So they have an update every month. Actually, it's tomorrow is the next one, where they go through the strategic risks or new requests and any changes. I can bring a simple report. It won't be the full-blown report that you would have every 6 months, but you can have an interim report with a copy of the register.
I think Councillor Bentley is even asking it's just sent to us and not even requiring Hayley to attend necessarily. A noting.
Attached. I just think it's, so we can raise questions we want to.
Yeah,
I just think it's good governance for any authority to do that.
Okay, thank you. So
Absolutely.
just, I'd say sending it to us and then we can review and summon you if needs be. I think that's probably the best way to, you'll be here anyway, yeah, but just to reduce any, to make it as efficient as possible. Okay, I'll take that note then, Matthew. Yep, correct, excellent. Okay, can I have a vote then, please? All those in favour? Agreed, excellent, thank you, Hayley. The audit tracker update is next, 11.3. And Anna, I'll come to you for that. The committee will consider a report that provides it with a view of the audit tracker, which is to be used to track the implementation of the recommendations that came out of last year's 2024-25 final accounts process, as highlighted by the Council's external auditors, KPMG. Anna, I'll go over to you for us to note again this report.
Thank you, Chair. So for those of you, well, most of you weren't here when we presented the final accounts, some of you were, the final accounts for 24-25, and I made a commitment to this committee that this is what I normally do in other roles, that I would bring the recommendations from the VFM report and the ISA 260 report. ISA 260 report is more of a technical accounting report that comes when the auditors audit the accounts. Value for money conclusion we're all familiar with, and there are other pillars that govern that. Governance is one of those key pillars for the value for money reports, and financial resilience, and there's one more that I can't remember. So I made that commitment. There's a lot of information in that report, because going back to the issue that we've had disclaimed accounts now for 4 years, the issues repeat. So there's similar issues that repeat year on year. What I've taken there is from the 24-25 accounts, which shows the year before and also the current year. So they're not all finance related. You can see there, and you can see who the lead officers are. In fact, the only finance one in the VFM one is the one on finance capacity and capability of the team. I'm happy to talk to that one. And then there are other officers responsible for some key ones, and we've already talked about things like the risk register. And there's ISA 260 comments in there, which Bernard has been leading as part of the account. So in terms of the finance one, when I came in February 25, you may recall that I had, the auditors had already said that there were big gaps in the capability and capacity of the finance team. That was correct. One of the very first tasks that I undertook at pace was to recruit some technical finance people. That team was decimated. We have now people like Bernard, and before him Hussein, that needed to come in, and Anmol, who was in the audience, as our capital accountant. That normally is a very difficult team to recruit to, corporate finance, because of the technical nature of the role, and it's very technical. And it's always difficult in a district because we don't pay enough. There's a lot of people like that have a very specific skill set, and they're very expensive. So when I took over from the shared services ceasing, all those gaps remained and they weren't filled. So I've done a lot of work in order to get us to a more stable place. Of course, we had to run the team with a lot of interims to start with. We had about 6. I'm not an interim, I'm a fixed term contractor, but we had about 6 interims. And obviously that's not very stable for a finance team. And let's just say some interims are better than others, right? If I want to put that politely. So we are now in a position where we only have 2 interims. We started a recruitment campaign to convert those interims to perm in October. We were successful with 4 roles, and David is one of them. And we're very, very happy to have David as our HRA and housing business partner. The only 2 roles that are still interim are Bernard as our chief accountant, and Anmol, who was here as our capital accountant. They're both very competent people, and my suggestion is that those roles are very, very difficult to fill. We've been trying since October last year, and interviewed loads of people and not managed to get there. So my suggestion is that we retain, and they're happy to stay. I've spoken to both of them until we go to LGR. My role has gone through an interview process, and I understand that all work is being done behind the scenes in terms of the appointment. I can't obviously say that in an open forum because it needs to be a full council approval, because it's a statutory post. So when I leave here in August, I would have done everything I can to stabilise the team. Obviously, it starts from the top, but I've been one of the longest serving, not quite, because there's a permanent team as well, but I've been a very long serving person now in the finance team, having started in February 2025. So that's probably, I've said quite a lot, haven't I? But that's probably all I want to say on the finance one. I suppose I would now go to if there's any questions on any of those items in the audit tracker for members.
Thank you, Anna. None from me. I don't see anyone else indicating. Okay. We've heard enough assurance on that one in particular, so I am happy to I'm happy to, and thank you for the work to get us into this period and to this position, after a difficult period. So I think it is really helpful, and it is very transparent. You want to come back and question yourself, Anna?
Just one more thing. So this will come quarterly. So we started Q1 now. So the next quarter will bring another update, and then we'll get to the point where we have a new set of accounts and hopefully less recommendations. The other thing I wanted to say is these recommendations have been carried forward from previous years. The only new one was around turnstone governance. That was the only new recommendation that has been added since about now 2 years ago. So that's probably it. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent, thank you. Therefore, I move that the committee note the report and the contents of the tracker. Agreed? Excellent, thank you. Thank you, Anna. We move on then to the Governance and Audit Committee annual report. We ask Hayley to come back again. Thank you to the finance officers. Excellent. And we'll move on to Hayley again. The committee are considering a report of the Draft Governance and Audit Committee Annual Report 2025-26 and its submission on to full council. Hayley, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is very straightforward. I'm not going to go into great details. All of the information is in there. I'm just going to give a summary in terms of it is good practice for us to produce a year-end report for this committee, demonstrating the work that's been undertaken, the issues that have been reviewed, and providing that report to full council. So we apply the CIPFA, which is the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy guidance on the operation of local authority audit committees, which was published in 2022. We reviewed our arrangements against that publication back in 2024. There were some areas we identified where we could strengthen our compliance, and the production of this report is one of those. So this is the second year we've produced it. And literally what we've done for you is set out how we've complied with the requirements, what we have looked at in terms of discharging responsibilities of this committee, and including assessment of the performance. And obviously it should be a public document, hence why it's before yourselves. So Appendix A sets out, Appendix A on page 247, sets out the forward by the previous chair, Councillor Alison Jay. So she was chair during 25-26 and gives her assurance in terms of her view of the compliance with the requirements. And as I say, I'm not going to go into huge detail about the work that's been undertaken. It has been set out for you. We obviously set out the membership, we set out the knowledge and skills framework, and we set out the roles and responsibilities. So I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayley. And I want to just put my thanks to Councillor Jay as the previous chair, Councillor Naylor and Councillor Summers here as well as previous members. And I do think, again, in response to some of the earlier reports, tonight is an example where we've got regular updates coming to us. We've got a deep dive into a particular issue. So I do think our performance as a committee, or the previous performance, has set in train a direction that is a very good direction, a very transparent one. So I am very much supported by the work that has been done before and hope we can continue to go forward. We've already asked about some more assurance on risk today that we will see and we'll see next time. So I'm very happy with this report and to take the findings in the report and move forward and to continue to improve our business. Are there any comments from councillors? Councillor Pearson.
No, I'm happy with the report, having been the signatory to the very first report that came from G&A to full council. I think it makes sense that this report goes forward to full council as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Therefore, I put it to the committee. Are we happy? Agreed. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Hayley. Thanks for all your help this evening. You will be, yes. So we move to the original item 10, which is company oversight. We're bringing forward at this point so that we can have a smooth transition then to the work programme and then to some of the other items. So Simon, please come forward. The Amphora Business Update 25-26. Good evening, Simon, just on your own this evening, and I will hand over to you shortly. So at the briefing, we agreed that we'd take this and if we need to go into the confidential appendices, we'll have to declare that, and that will have to wait till the private session. Simon, you'll go through business update with us with the context of an approved growth strategy, looking at the financials and the 4-year forecast and progressing the Amphora growth strategy. So over to you, Simon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So we've brought to you this evening the finances for Amphora 25-26 that we're now going through the audit process on, and the 4-year forecast. Just to give you a kind of highlights of the report that I've provided. So from a group company restructuring perspective, we have now renamed Colchester Commercial Holdings to Amphora Commercial Holdings, and we have set up Amphora Services Limited, the Teckle business, and we continue to run Amphora Trading Limited, the non-Teckle business. Carl, the homes business, will time out. We're not able to close it yet as it has a contract attached to it, but as soon as that is timed out, we will close that company down. Setting up real clarity around the Teckle and non-Teckle companies now allows us to move to a tax mitigation strategy utilising Amphora Services Limited. So we have been undertaking the work through HMRC so that we're able to mutually trade through Amphora Services Limited with Colchester City Council. Much of what we've done is thanks to scrutiny by this Governance and Audit Committee, so thank you for that. We're now looking at modelling various options so that we can be tax efficient. In terms of rebalancing the board, I'm now advertising for a chair and sector industry advisors. Can I at this point thank Councillor Martin Warnes and Councillor Rhys Smithson for their significant support over the last 2, and in Martin's case, 6 years. So that is really appreciated. In terms of the brief update, I've given you some of the highlights, and again, thanks to guidance, we are providing a business pack going forward, providing you with finance, risk, the performance, and then updates from a growth investment perspective. The final thing to say is that we are awaiting the outcome of the Council's technical review. So that, Chair, is my summary. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Summers and then Councillor Pearce.
Thanks very much, Chair. Yes, just a quick question on Amphora Space regarding Holy Trinity Church. Obviously, when I was portfolio holder, we lost Community 360 and brought on St Helena Hospice, who have now obviously also gone. And so I was just wondering what chance of success your plans have and how, I mean, I know you're waiting to secure the National Lottery funding. When will you hear about that, do you think? And what are your plans? Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of Holy Trinity Church, as you've rightly said, St Helena's unfortunately were not able to continue. So we have come in at the 11th hour to support this proposal. We put together a business plan for how we would operate Holy Trinity Church. We went to present that to the National Heritage Lottery Fund a few weeks ago. So from our perspective, there's a real opportunity to utilise the Amphora events team to run events within Holy Trinity Church. So of a number of components, we see that as a key component where we can find the right kind of events to run within Holy Trinity Church. The modelling is such that we can probably see between 200 and 250 people, and so we believe that's going to be a revenue stream. There will also be components around education, around community support, and also potentially around using it. Predominantly the funding is for heritage and for a museum, but we also see other opportunities where we want to explore what is possible. So we've put together a very prudent business plan at this stage, and we'll be hopefully securing that revenue funding as well as the capital funding.
Lindsay, on this point, please.
Yeah, and I would probably just add that the hospice didn't pull out because of issues with Holy Trinity Church. They pulled out because their whole reorganisation of their organisation. And I understand we will hear imminently about Holy Trinity Church. So as soon as we do, we will let you know.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I mean, it's a terrific report, Simon, about the direction of travel that Amphora has taken under your leadership over the last couple of years. And all credit to you and the rest of the team for doing that. A couple of things. One, could you just explain to all the members around the table what a Teckle company is? Right? Because I'm not sure that everyone will have understood that. And I remember I had to go away and look it up last year. Second thing is the appointment of the chair, other members to the board. How will that be reported back to this committee? Because although councillors are no longer directly responsible for the oversight of Amphora, it's still important that we as the committee are overseeing what's happening there and who's actually involved in the decision making. And the final point is one that was raised with me by a very vocal resident who often comes and has his say, but Mr. Nick Chilvers sent me an email saying, could I please raise with you the issues? And I fully appreciate what the events team have done in Colchester over the last 2 to 3 years and how they have brought business into the city centre and into the city generally. But Nick Chilvers asked me to ask what can be done by Amphora and the city to mitigate the issues for neighbouring residents when we hold events are held, and also how can we ensure that those events are mindful of the impact on residents.
Thank you for those comments. So to deal with them in order, in terms of Teckle, so Teckle is a legal framework that the public sector companies are able to use that allow us to trade where, as long as 80% of our trade is with the council, we're able to trade 20% externally. So it gives us that freedom to be able to trade, but to also therefore not go through procurement procedures and get direct procurement from the council. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm quite happy to provide more information as any councillors require. In terms of recruiting a chair, so we are supporting the council in the recruitment of that chair, and we've had about 25 applications so far. The proposal is that we will bring 2 or 3 appointable candidates to a agreed group for the interview process, so that this decision will be made by the council, and Amphora will support that process. In terms of Nick's concerns, and totally understand, there's a number of things that we're doing. So we are part of all resident association meetings so that they can really speak to us about their specific concerns. A number of those concerns boil right down to, can you put a barrier outside my house so that when people come past, they're not walking on my garden? So we're literally looking at every resident that's affected, what can we do to mitigate their concerns. There are very strict noise limits that have to be adhered to, and that results in significant noise modelling to ensure that we always comply, and that is monitored throughout all of the concerts. and there are time constraints that we have to work to, again, to mitigate that. We also provide residents with golden tickets because we are conscious that they are incurring discomfort, upset, and so to try and mitigate that, we do our best to offer those free tickets to residents so that they're able to at least get some enjoyment from what can be a difficult experience. The only other thing I would say is that if you look over the last couple of years, we have reinvested back into Castle Park, into Charter Hall, where we can, with agreement with the council. So a real attempt to show that although there can be that inconvenience, that it does return a benefit in terms of what we can do. I think, does that answer your questions?
Excellent.
Thank you.
Simon, really good answers to those. Thank you. And gives us a lot of confidence. I was wondering about that kind of golden ticket idea, so good to hear. Councillor Bentley, was yours on this related to this point or a different? Oh, okay, I'll come back to you. I have myself in the queue, then Councillor Young, and then over to you. Thank you, Simon. I really am given confidence the way in which you seem to take on the company with a good direction that the council needs to be reassured of, that you are interested in turning around, bringing the income in, but also having that thoughtful nature behind it that the company's always needed to have. So thank you for giving that confidence. Just on two specific points, 1.8, talking about the different elements of the company. A previous interest of mine, I was chair of the NHS Alliance for North East Essex, which sat under the ICB, and I previously was aware they may be withdrawing their contract, some of their contracts for falls with Helpline. I just wondered where we were with that. I no longer have that interest, so I can ask that question from a council's interested point. And then secondly, Amphora Connect. You talk about doubling the customer base. I'm always aware that a lot rests on the shoulders of Steve Eek in the service. I'm looking to invest in expanding the workforce in order to then double that base. Understanding with digital technology doesn't always require much more workforce, but I understand your aspirations there. I want to continue to see the ultra-fast broadband provided by Colchester and Amphora Connect to keep going. So just those 2 points from me, and then I'll go to Councillor Young. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the ICB funding, it has continued. We believe that there was, because there's been such significant restructuring, that we kind of fell between a crack. So there's absolute clarity on they value the service that we provide, and so they've kept the funding going. If you look at April, we answered 88 ambulance calls, which resulted in generally the elderly person, the vulnerable person, not having to go to hospital. So there's a real appreciation for that. So that's good news. We will obviously keep close to that because as things change. In terms of Amphora Connect, really valid points. What we've done, we have about 400 customers. We need to increase that customer base for Amphora Connect to be sustainable going forward. So what we've done is some fairly drastic changes. The PA to the MD role has been made redundant, and we have brought in a customer service acquisition lead. So that person works across the businesses, but today is giving Steve and Howard significant support, and it really is reaping dividends. So we've already seen new customers coming through from Wivenhoe, 4 recently, and another 4 in the pipeline. So that's an additional resource. Sadly, we lost 2 of our part-time marketing executives, but that has given us an opportunity to recruit a full-time digital marketing person. So there's no increase in labour, but a realignment of resource so that Steve effectively has 4 people rather than the 2, and that's really helping things. So, we're keeping Amphora Connect very close because we need to look at how we go forward with its future.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. In 1.1, where you description of Amphora Services Limited, I presume that should be TECL compliant rather than TECL complaint business. It's a typo, I think.
Absolutely right, Councillor.
Right, so can we make sure that that's noted? Because the technical complaint business would be something completely different.
We note your complaint, Councillor Young.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Very good. With regard to the recruitment of the chair, it does say that it would be in June. So has that timetable slipped a bit? It won't be in June. It will presumably now be appointing in July, hopefully.
So we've had a good number of applicants because of the holiday period. We haven't been able to get through everything. So we're looking at doing interviews in July, August, and we'll be hopefully appointing the person 1st of September.
Thank you. And finally, Chair, on the events, I know I'll declare an interest as the Council's rep on the Mercury board that we've had some issues with the Mercury and for events. I think we've had a meeting now where perhaps you could explain to the committee that what we've agreed and that going forward that's going to be a good, positive relationship. I just, the summer series is brilliant. Castle Park summer series, and if a few residents complain, then I'd rather have the footfall in the city with the business coming into, and I speak to a lot of businesses, coming into restaurants and hotels, and it's great. And I think the summer series this year is selling well. The Christmas show is selling well. So I think that all that is a real feather in the cap for events, and long may it continue. And I know you've got plans for next year already, and so that's great. I think it's like somebody who buys a house near a school and then complains that they can't park when schools are coming in and going out, or there's noise in the playground. If you live near Castle Park, there's going to be a few events a year where there might be a bit of noise, but as you say, the decibel levels are monitored and kept to a certain level. I went to see the Stranglers recently at Hampton Court Palace Festival, and I don't think there's any complaints from residents around. There might be a few, but you know, if you accept that you're near an attraction, and Castle Park is our main tourist attraction, it's fantastic, then we've got to accept that that's gonna happen. But I'd rather accept a bit of criticism, but also have that footfall. And well done to Colchester Events for the summer series and the other events that they're holding, I know most of which are bringing business and economic growth into our city.
Thank you, Councillor. So in terms of the Mercury, we're now meeting with them monthly so that with our operations teams are comparing schedules such that we do our best not to get that conflict and adjust it accordingly. So yeah, and appreciate your support with that. Thank you. In terms of, we're running the summer series, tickets are looking well, as is the Wizard of Oz Christmas show. I think it's important to note that the summer concerts brought in £6 million worth of economic impact, 6.5, and the Christmas show brought in 6 million. Overall, for events brought in 25 million, which is why they were nominated at the LGC Awards. So yeah, it's a fantastic story, and credit to that team for the years of support that they've given. But we can't stand still. And so we are looking at how to develop the food festival, comedy festival, to give that truly amazing year-round event schedule. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Simon. It's really good to hear those figures, and I do think we need to do more at communicating that greater good that is achieved for Colchester overall and the economic benefits. Thank you. I've got Councillor Bentley, then Councillor Naylor, and then I think that's it, and we'll move on. Thank you. Councillor Bentley.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Echo everything that Tim has just said. Absolutely brilliant. And there's a seismic shift, has been for a number of years, in the events that we do. Colchester was always a destination for history, which it still is. It's now a destination for many other things as well, including our great arts experience we have here. All sorts of arts, from First Science Arts Centre to Mercury to this, I mean, just superb. Very few cities of our size can actually boast that amount in the small area that we've got. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And not mentioned, but let's say the zoo and Learmonth and all the others, you know, including that, because they're all part of the experience in Colchester too. Now, and what I just wanted to ask is almost an impossible question, but I'm going to ask it. It refers to 1.10, very small LGR. You won't be, if you could answer this, you probably could retire. But anyway, so, but I just want to know, good to see you working with Tendering, which is good. We have to prepare for this. And for it is one of those great success stories. I just wondered, are we talking to the other partners in that to make sure they are fully aware, even just as sort of an exercise in explanation and awareness, they know that we're not merging councils, we're creating a new council, that new council knows exactly what it's got and what it can take on and promote.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So, in terms of LGR, particularly through James, is working very much with trying to build relationships quite far afield around Essex, so Thurrock, Southend, great relationship, working relationship with Malden. Tendering have been really open to talk to us, obviously through the full service CCTV and out of hours, but there is a willingness, conscious that they're running a very big event in terms of the air show. So we're very much taking your approach of how can we support them, not in any way that we want to take over. We do see some great opportunities. So it is very much, same with Braintree, we've had some early meetings, really just to share and identify opportunities and where we can, particularly to show that we are a solution and not here to in any way take over.
Thank you, Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Chair. Couple of things just occur to me. In previous committees, when we've heard about the great progress you're making, you spoke about an ambition to connect Charter Hall to the High Street, and you had a plan to utilise Castle Park in that plan. And that's why I wondered how you were getting on with that, because it'd be great to have an update, because the connectivity, I think, is would be a big win if it does indeed manifest in that very quality way that you're becoming known for, which is great. And my second question is, I am all in favour of impact measures. Would you please just take a moment to explain to the committee how you're calculating your economic impact figure that you shared with us? We'd be very interested to understand the mechanics of that calculation. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of your first question, it's a slow process, but we are moving forward. So the kind of areas we want to look at is we're particularly supporting Leisure World Working Group, which is looking at how can we not only ensure that there is good traffic flow to Leisure World from the roads, but also through Castle Park from the city. So we've been doing some work where we're installing CCTV cameras within Castle Park. We want to take that further in terms of further cameras and lighting. Putting in the fixed wireless broadband network around the city will enable us to do that. There are significant problems. We can't dig up Pathways and Castle Park because it's got significant planning restrictions. But by using the Wi-Fi system, we will be able to start to install cameras, but as I say, not having to access fibre. So we're looking at it from an infrastructure perspective. We're looking at working with partners, so we're part of the High Street Task Force. We want to try and create pathways and cultural corridors that really link the various places within the city. So it's early days, and we've got some work that we're doing. The latest work that we're starting is to look at the CCTV strategy across the city with the council, particularly with Lucy Bredman and Andrew Tyrrell. So there is an action plan there. It will take time, but yes, we're working on that.
And the economic impact, is that something you could take offline or something you can say within 20 seconds now?
That's a really tough question. So we used Counterculture, a consultant, to provide us with all the calculations. What we're now doing is I'm not a great fan of paying consultants. So what we've got them to do is they've produced some models for us that we can start to use. So effectively, they've given us the calculations, the formula that they use, and we're going to start to do that within our dashboards so that you don't just get how many people turned up, but what was that economic impact. So you start to look at percentages. So we've got, take for example the summer concert, 65,000 people came. We know where they came from because we geo-mapped them in terms of ticket sales. What we can start to do is to make assumptions around, once you come so far, you're going to need to stay over. It may be 1 night, 2 nights. So you start to build a picture as to, and this is using data from Counterculture, where you can say, well, if they come locally, they're going home. If they come further afield, they're likely to be staying for a meal, and further afield again, then they'll be staying for accommodation. So, and then assessing that information with, so we're talking to the Three Wise Monkeys, to the hotels, to see, does that translate through to what they're seeing?
Excellent, thank you. Very aware of the time, so very quickly, please.
I wondered, Chair, if we could ask Amphora to give us a presentation on that, because I think it's an important metric, please.
Yeah, if Simon, if that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Tom Wilcox from Counterculture would be more than happy to support doing that workshop, so I'll take that as an action. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Simon. Therefore, I think we've covered that really well. I haven't asked or seen anyone ask any questions that would have to go on to Part B. Therefore, can I ask, do we need to go to Part B with Amphora this evening? Councillor Pearson.
I did ask when we had the pre-brief about some of the figures, so I may want to just come back to that when we go into Part B.
Before we go into Part B?
When we go into Part B.
Right, okay, so we will need to go into Part B then.
But we could do that. We could do that when we go into Part B for the other item, is what I'm suggesting.
All right then, okay, thank you. Okay, then we need to, what do we need to do with this one? We need to review and make recommendations to Cabinet on the Amphora business update within the context of the approved Amphora growth strategy, with specific review of the financials for 2025-26 and the 4-year forecast, and progressing Amphora growth strategy. I think we've given a few actions for you, Simon, to take away, but otherwise we're quite pleased. Actions to further promote the impact as well in India. Very pleased, very pleased. And those golden tickets for all of us around the table as well. Joking, no. Okay, thank you, Simon. Always good to see you. We'll see you next meeting. Excellent, thank you. Moving on, we will go to the work programme. And I just want to be clear, members, that the Constitution says that we should finish meetings at 9 o'clock. It's up to the discretion of the Chair then to take items further into session after that. But I just want to be clear, that's what we're meant to do, to look after each other. We've already had an hour before this evening. So if we can try and fit everything in. We move to the work programme, which Matthew has given us. Are there any questions to do with that work programme, or do we want to note them as they are? Councillor Pearson.
Only with the exception of the suggestion that Councillor Bentley was making earlier.
Yeah, thank you. So that was more for a point of out of exception. We will have it sent to us, and we will ask to summon. Ask Hayley.
So it won't go on the work programme as a report to come here, but it will be emailed around. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. And if needs be, we can ask Hayley to come, but we'll see her frequently enough. Are there any other adjustments to the work programme at this point? Hayley's coming already. No? Okay, excellent. So we can note that work programme. It's a rolling agenda, rolling piece of work. Excellent. Noted? Noted, thank you. Perfect. Okay, therefore, Deputy... Sorry, not yet. Deputy Chair, can I ask you to move item 13, which is a nice... You have to take a deep breath. The exclusion of the public, and if not, Tim Young did this many a time, and I have too, but the exclusion of the public, please.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. The report itself is public domain, so perhaps we could have the officer's report, and it's the audit itself, which is Part B. So perhaps we could
take that deep breath again later. Thank you. Hayley, yes, please come forward, but I have to excuse myself, so Tim was right, goodbye. So, please, the chair is warm, and I will see you shortly.
Hayley, thank you. Would you like to proceed?
Thank you, Chair. So, I'm just going to do a very brief summary. You have the covering report for the internal audit to review, and I just wanted to set out that the report presents the findings of the review of the Turnstone development, also known as the Northern Gateway Leisure Park project. The review is commissioned to assess whether the project has been delivered in line with the Council's governance framework, financial regulations, procurement requirements, and project management controls. The project represents a major and complex commercial development involving long-term land and lease arrangements, external funding, and ongoing commercial management. As a result, strong governance, robust oversight, and clear decision-making arrangements are critical to its success. The purpose of the review was to provide assurance over the integrity of governance and decision-making, the quality of information supporting key decisions, the adequacy of documentation and audit trails, and effectiveness of financial and commercial oversight arrangements. And it arose through some review work that we had carried out as a local authority in terms of the arrangements, and also from comments received from the external auditors as part of their previous statement of accounts review work. And as you've heard previously from the audit tracker report earlier, those issues are being tracked and monitored via both our annual governance statement and their audit tracker. And it was appropriate, therefore, that we did a further deep dive by our internal auditors to review the historic arrangements that were in place. Importantly, the review did not identify evidence of deliberate wrongdoing. However, the weaknesses identified, and there were some, increased the Council's exposure to financial governance and reputational risk if not addressed. The report recognises that many of the issues identified relate to historic arrangements during a period when local authority commercial activity and company governance structures were significantly different to how they are now. Since that time, the Council has undertaken work to strengthen its governance arrangements, including improvements to company oversight, clarification of roles and responsibility, and enhancement of assurance processes, and we've gone over some of those already this evening. Overall, the report provides a clear and balanced assessment of governance arrangements for a significant project, highlighting where improvements are required and setting out recommendations to strengthen governance, transparency and control going forward, and obviously lessons learnt for future projects of this nature. Nicola Cox, the report author from TIA, is online to answer specific questions, but I would just like to clarify that the covering report contains a minor inaccuracy. The report states at paragraph 5.4 that internal audit was commissioned to review five key things, including the appropriateness of legal and professional advice. This was put in the original scope, but TIA stated that they could not review the appropriateness of legal and professional advice, so this is not covered in the report. The committee are asked to note the findings of the Turnstone Development Compliance Audit, endorse the recommendations contained within the report, and request a follow-up assurance report to confirm implementation of agreed actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayley. I'd like to just remind members, if I may, that there are elements of this report that are confidential relating to financial information. If you do have questions regarding that, you're more than welcome to bring those to the private session. But at this point, I'm only inviting questions that can be aired in public, so nothing relating to confidential information. Are there any questions? Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things. One, in terms of the history of this development. I'm just wondering whether anyone in the room should be declaring an interest and therefore not participate in any further discussion or debate. The second thing is just around the overall governance from day one, and I have to say that as a councillor of 12 years standing, I didn't even become aware of this development until about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's imperative that all councillors are made aware where there are major developments that are taking place, where decisions are taken in camera somewhere by cabinet members or limited members of the authority, that ultimately all 51 councillors are made aware of risks that are this great.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. I'm going to take advice on your first question and deal with that one first, if I may. One moment.
Yes, so we have asked for advice on the position regarding all members of this committee, and the only person who was asked to not take part in the discussions was Councillor Corey, which is why he's left. There is no need for any other members to declare an interest.
Thank you. I'm just conscious that Councillor Young was a member of CCHL board for a period of time, and was also involved in the original decision making.
But Councillor Young is not named in the report, Chris.
And it's mainly from 2019 onwards.
Sorry, Councillor Young, one moment, please. Councillor Pearson, so I'm advised that there's no risk, though it's a very reasonable question. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hayley, would you like to respond to the second question, please?
The report covers some very historic issues, and I think it's, when we go into the private session, obviously there is more detail that we can give you. I think it's an honest review of some of those issues that you have raised, and it feeds into the discussion earlier about risk and project risks and the way that we are changing that reporting process. So as we go forward, the governance arrangements that are in place now should ensure that we're not in the situation where members feel that they haven't been fully briefed when a significant item is taken as a decision.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further questions that can be heard in the public session, or would members now like to move to private session? Yes. Right. Deep breath. Right. I'm now going to read the statement for the exclusion of the public, and then this committee will move into private session. In accordance with section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, I move to exclude the public, including the press, from the meeting, so that any items containing exempt information by virtue of paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972, brackets, financial/business affairs of a particular person, including the authority holding information, close brackets, can be considered. Further brackets, exempt information is defined in section 1001, or is that 100L? It was 1001 and Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, close brackets. We'll pause a while now while... Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, agreed. Sorry, folks, thank you. Just to let members of the public who may be watching know that the feed will stop and the committee will continue